Welcome to the Peew!
Welcome to the Peew!
The Christmas edition.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, blah, 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 blah. I got a funny email from some nonprofit group that did their...
Too funny to even mention.
No, did their own rendition of Deck the Halls. And it's they're an anti-solitary confinement organization, and it was something like, "We're against solitary confinement," and the lyrics
beat your head against the padded wall.
I mean, they were so ridiculous, and they encouraged you to sing this at your family get-together to help spread the. I mean, do you think anybody, even one person, is going to do that?
Nobody can even remember the lyrics of Deck the Halls.
Well, exactly.
Much
but
less another version about
it makes interesting fodder for a show like The Pew. But do you think anybody is actually going to do that?
No.
No, I don't know.
Maybe the director of that organization might force his family.
Maybe Dolce will.
Right, we've got Dolce in solitary confinement in the bathroom.
Yeah, and he's decking the halls with
barks
that
of
he
laughter.
hopes. He's not in solitary confinement. He's in a lavishly set up room.
Lavishly tiled bathroom.
No, he's not. He's in the bedroom.
Oh, okay.
Which you'd think. I mean, if I was in the bedroom, I would be sleeping right now. I'd be cushioned up in my bed. But he's.
And for all we know, half our fans are sleeping right now watching this episode.
Well, if they're sleeping, they can't be watching the episode. A lot of people watch this in the morning.
Well, they may not have been sleeping when they started, but at this point.
Oh, okay, go.
Well, we're going to talk about Michael's trip to Texas. So much to say about it.
Oh my gosh, how are we going to fit this in?
So, for those of you who went to the party in Texas, it was in McEwen, Texas.
Yeah.
At some club whose name I can't remember at this point.
It wasn't a club. It was a theater. That was.
Well, Cine de something.
Cine El Rey. Cine El Rey.
Okay.
And it was a Party Monster themed party.
Right, where they decked out the whole place, spent thousands of dollars bringing Michael, putting up lavish decorations, and lo and behold, Michael didn't show up.
No.
You missed the plane.
No. That one thing, okay. Keoki was primping, which was the reason we did not make the plane. Because
really? It was Keoki primping?
You know that...
I know that you primp.
Keoki primps more than I primp. But this time really was Keoki. And he will not admit that, but it was him. But anyway, it's neither high here nor there.
There's been very few times in my life that I've missed planes, and most of them have been with you. Because you were
But you have to ask yourself, what's the common denominator? You.
You.
No, and all the times you missed a plane, it was you.
Oh, well, you were there.
So anyway, we did miss the plane. And because of that, they had to charter a plane to get us to one of the legs of the trip. And there ended up being 4 planes that we had to get on, transfer 4 times, from here to Baltimore to Boston to Austin to
Cucamonga.
Yeah. And by the time we arrived there, it was 10 hours later, and we were very cranky. You can imagine how cranky we were. And we had both taken a Xanax before we got on the plane. So, which helped. And so...
So I guess that 10 hours later, it had worn off.
Well, but the effects of the Xanax, I suppose you could say, were responsible for me leaving my computer on the plane. Because when we got to the hotel at about 12:30, I suddenly realized... Night? Yeah. I suddenly, after getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning...
What time did the party start?
No, this is... They were smart enough to bring us in the day before to allow for such things.
All right. Good planning.
Yeah. So we left at 4 o'clock in the morning and got there at 12:30 in the morning. So it was like, almost 24 hours. And so when we got to the hotel and I said, I left my computer on the plane, you can imagine the reaction I got. Even the promoter, who was doing everything he could to be, gracious and welcoming. And I mean, I saw his face and it was just like, you're not telling me I have to go back to the airport. But we had to go back to the airport. So we got to the airport and his name is Dorian Gray. And we went inside the airport and the front door was open. It was a very modern building, but new. And we went in and it was like it was like a scene from Dawn of the Dead. We heard the music playing and all the stores, there was like a mall in the front. All the stores were all lit up and everything was running, but it was completely closed and there was nobody there. Like nobody. And I was thinking, that any terrorist could just come in and take a plane, and there was just nobody there. And when we went to the gates where all the planes were, there was a metal, like chain link kind of gate separating that part from the shopping mall part. But that was where the planes landed. So I thought maybe there's a security guard back there. So I opened the gates and went through, and again, Dawn of the Dead, nobody. And so we left and went back downstairs and we went outside, and when we were going to the truck we saw a security guard, and I said, our plane must have been the last plane that came in, because we just landed and the airport's closed already. But I left my computer on the plane, and he said, yes, we found it. And it's in the superintendent's office. You can come get it tomorrow morning. So I rested assured that night that I was going to get my computer back the next morning. And we came back at the crack of noon, and I walked in and I said that I was looking for my computer, and they said, hold on for one moment. And then he got on their walkie-talkie, and we saw policemen coming from all angles, and they said, "Now, just don't, no need to get excited here. This is for your own safety." And he said, "You're not going to be arrested, but we're going to detain you." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, there's no need to get excited. We have the footage of you trespassing into the airport, and we're just going to ask a few questions. Put your hand behind your back. We're just going to detain you for a minute." And I mean, I complied with him, but I was, it was kind of alarming to me. And Keoki was still in the car, but the promoter was standing next to me with his jaw on the floor. And next thing we knew, I was handcuffed, and they took me into the back room. And when they put my social security number into the computer, the name that popped up was not Michael Alig. The name that popped up was Michael Clark. Because the first time that I was ever arrested, it was at an outlaw party, and I was arrested for some kind of inciting a riot, actually. It was the time that the police at the Jacob Javits Center, when the police tried to take the bottles of liquor away, and I wouldn't give them the liquor, and then I got on top of the bulldozer and I announced through a bullhorn that there were only 2 of them and 500 of us.
Good time.
And how are they going to stop us from having this party?
Let's get the cops.
And so they allowed the party to go on, but meanwhile called more cops in. And when the cops came, I threw a rock at one of them, and they arrested me and Christopher Kopp. And I said that my name was Michael Clark because I didn't want a record. So
Little did you know.
Yeah, when they put my fingerprint and social security now, that name will pop up as an AKA, an alias. So when the information got to Texas, though, it was switched around. That the AKA was Michael Alig, and the actual name, my actual name, it says was Michael Clark. So when I kept calling myself Michael Alig, they said that they're going to call me Michael Clark because that's what my real name is. And so, yeah. So they...
That's funny.
Since all of my ID said Michael Alig, they charged me with having falsified ID. And then they...
Don't mess with Texas.
Then they said... They called in a detective. And the detective came about an hour later, and he said... He walked in the room right away and said, "Have you been drinking, Mr. Clark?" And I said, "No." He said, you haven't had any cocktails on the plane." And I said, "No." And he said, "So if we check the airplane records for Mr. Clark having any cocktails, there'll be no record of that." And I said, "Well, there won't be because my name isn't Mr. Clark." But no, I didn't drink. So he said, "I have been in this business for a long time, and he said, "I know a marijuana user when I see one." And I said, "I have done a lot of drugs in my life, but marijuana is the one drug really that it's just never been my drug."
Mine neither.
And I told him, and he said, foolishly, I have this thing about being too open and honest with people, and I was kind of thinking out loud, and but
I've got some special K here.
No,
if you want to do some with
I remembered Olympia. I remembered that I'd done a Xanax the night before, and when I mentioned the word Xanax, Xanax, you're on Xanax, and they just wrote all the paperwork, inmate on Xanax, whatever. So
violent inmate.
Yeah, on Xanax. So that was what I was intoxicated on. They said. Even though it was over 24 hours earlier than I'd taken it. So that was enough and I really think they just wanted a reason to take me in. So that was the reason to take me in. So I told them, I said, check my urine, check my blood. There's nothing in there but the Xanax. And they said that in the state of Texas, all they need is an officer's opinion for public intoxication. So they took me in, and at that point, I started feeling like it was getting out of my control, the situation, and if it ever was in my control. And so Kyoku's still in the car, you know, and now he's watching me come in for a computer and coming out in handcuffs with police officers and into a police cruiser, and I can imagine what he's thinking, you know. And the promoter is like going crazy because he's thinking he's not going to be at the party. So they took me to the police station, and when I got there, they just started charging me with all these things: with trespassing, criminal mischief, falsifying records, ID, not having proper ID, and you know, I was like, "Am I ever going to get out of here?" I said, "Well, you're in a lot of trouble, Mr. Clark." And I was like, I was thinking, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is Mr. Clark in trouble, or am I, you know? But they weren't letting me go. They said they would not let me go until they could identify who I was, which meant that I had to tell them that I was Mr. Clark, because Mr. Alig was somebody else, Dr.
Fictitious person.
And all of these people who were nice to me in the beginning came by my side. They said, you know, we were good to you in the beginning. You didn't have to lie to us, Mr. Clark. And I was like, you know, my name is Mr. Allen. They're like, sure it is. It's Mr. Clark. It says so right here. So I was thinking, should I falsify some ID and make it say Mr. Clark just to, like, you know, go along with it? But my mom had to go to the hospital that I was born in and get my phone.
And now a word from our sponsor.
My birth certificate, and then she faxed it to the jail, which promptly lost it. And then Jay, I guess, called you in the middle of the night and said he needed
at the It Twins Christmas party.
Oh God!
In fact,
so
where I didn't rush home, but
at midnight.
Finally, when I got home, I sent your prison ID.
Right, and that caused a whole new thing.
Oh,
because
so
now you're in prison. We got a fugitive here. I'm a fugitive for the law. So that really, then they were looking at me like, who are you, Mr. Clark Alig? And so then I called Kyoki. And
Little did they know.
And at this point, he was getting ready to go DJ. And it was looking like I wasn't going to be at the party. And he said, Michael, this is looking very serious now. He said, we just sent a bail bondsman to get you out, and they wouldn't accept the bail bonds. They accepted the money, and then when the bail bondsman said, I'm here to pick up Michael Alig, they said, we don't have any Michael Alig here. We only have Michael Clark. And then the bail bondsman said, what kind of a game is this? And he didn't feel comfortable giving the money for somebody they didn't even know who it was. So they gave him the money back, minus a $45 service fee. That Kyoki reminded me of what I called. So, I mean, we can laugh at it now, but believe me, I wasn't laughing then. And so at that point, I was like, I'm not going to make it to the party. And Kyoki said, what? I said, what are you going to tell people? And he said, I'll tell them that you weren't feeling well. And I said, Kyoki, nobody's going to believe that, first of all. And second of all, it makes me sound like Mariah Carey. You know, like they just flew me all the way out here, and I said, I'm not feeling well.
I mean, they'd believe it more if you were just in jail.
Yes. I mean, and anyway, I said, if you lie about it, it's going to come out later, and then it'll look like we're covering something up. So you have to just tell a little bit of a lie. Tell, that I'm in jail, but don't make it sound, make it... So,
it's all a misunderstanding.
Yeah, well, it was. So that's what he did.
Technically, you were trespassing, right?
I see it that way now. But you would have believed me.
While you're still on the Xanax, you thought it was
more than that.
Reasonable to be walking in an
but
empty
I did.
airport
No, I know.
Over and through a chain link fence.
There's no chain link fence. But I was looking for a security guard. So in my mind, I'm looking for an officer of the law.
And you thought that they might be in that plane over there.
No, but I thought they'd be at the gates,
Right, I mean, you'd think that there would be at least one police officer in an airport.
It's open, the door's wide open, music playing. It was like it was Dawn of the Dead. So, and it went dun, 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 dun. So, by the next afternoon, they had another bail bondsman come, and this one tried calling me Michael Clark. And I said, so we are Michael Clark! So they didn't let him bail me out either. The third one, and they took another $45. The third one came and was able to get me out, and then they let me out and they put me in a holding pen and they gave me my phone and everything. And then I was in the holding pen texting people saying I'm out, and then I heard the sergeant come out and say, "Why did you give him his phone?" And then they all huddled together, like I didn't know what they were talking about, and it sounded like they were going to put me back in, because I signed the release papers Michael Alig, and it was a whole new group of people. So when they saw me sign Michael Alig and the paper said Michael Clark, they thought maybe it was the wrong person. So there was another question of, are we going to let him go? Because we have to just make sure for your own safety. We have to know. So finally, they let me out at about 4:00, and missed the party. And I looked at the posts on Facebook. There were so many people so upset about this and wanting their money back and blaming the promoters and everything. So I started immediately posting that it was not his fault and don't blame him. Blame Keoki. And
Keoki's fault.
No, I know. But then
is it anybody's fault except your own?
Keoki's a little bit to blame because he had
Did you
been
have
on time.
Did you have a proper ID?
No, but if he had been on time,
how did you get on a plane in the first place without a proper ID?
In New York, because I had my PayPal card and my my Visa.
PayPal. That's an ID now.
Well, it had my name on it. Keoki didn't have ID either. You know, so and if he would have been on time for the first plane, we would have not gone through all this. So it's a domino effect thing. So the next night we went out for dinner and we just started calling people who were still in town, because a lot of people came from out of town. So some of them were still in town.
From all over Texas.
Yeah, and so we just said that we were hanging out in this club. They have like a meatpacking district with like all a concentrated area of clubs, and we went to about
Every
5 or
city's got
6
one.
clubs. They had a gay bar. And we went to 5 or 6 clubs, and every club we gained a few people, and by the end of the night there was a huge group of people, a lot of them from the party the night before, and I gave the promoter 100 lithographs to give to some people who wanted their money back.
Disgruntled customers.
Everybody left feeling at least that their grievances were aired and they were corrected, I think. So they left satisfied with their lithograph, and they also felt that the second night was more intimate because we could spend kind of quality time and signed autographs and pictures and everything. So I think in all, it ended up okay. As far as like saving what they call social media face, I think it worked out well. The money situation, it ended up costing them a lot of money because they had to pay the $350 fine for trespassing, and then there was a $2,000 bail bondsman, and then extra days in the hotel room, and changing the airplane, and so I don't know if they made any money. But
Doesn't sound like it.
But I think they lost a little bit less.
There you go. The sad tale of the trip to Texas.
I don't think it's so sad. I think
They're happy.
Yeah.
You lost all that money.
Oh, the promoters? I think it meant the club goers. We'll be right back.
No, that's it. See you next time.
Oh, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow.